is Florence Nyasamo Thomas, founder of Lives of Color. Lives of Color is an organization whose mission is to elevate the voices of marginalized communities, fostering equity, quality, and inclusion through education, events, and training. It is really exciting and great to see you all. I will just explain some of the housekeeping. You all have been mute or placed on mute to avoid any feedback on the line. So please unmute yourself if you speak. If you're speaking, we would appreciate if you could put your phones on silent, please. The event will last approximately 2.5 hours, and we have a series of presentations and videos to share, followed by an opportunity for a discussion. The discussion will be via questions and comments on the chat, so feel free to ask any questions or comments as we go along. This event is taking place live and is also being live streamed to YouTube. As you are participating in the event, please note that as long as it is being recorded and broadcasted, you are consenting to the use of your image and sound recording for broadcasting. Please also check your background. Please, could we ask you to make sure your name that shows on the screen is your real name so that we can identify you easily. You can use the chat function to share messages as we move through the agenda, and we'll collect all the messages. We also have a hashtag #CareChallenge2022 to share your thoughts on Twitter. I will now pass on over to Councillor Flo Lucas for the welcome and opening of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. That was really very, very kind of you to ask me to speak at this, and indeed for the committee to ask me to speak. Before I say anything, can I just thank you for your drive, for your commitment, and the members of the committee for not being put off or being put back by things that might go wrong. You have all been inspirational to me, and I can't wait for our next phase in this to begin to make a real change happen. So thank you all for the work that you've done. It's terrific. I suppose I first got involved with helping to change the way things are when I was a councillor in Liverpool, and I did some work with organisations who were seeking to encourage young people from different ethnic backgrounds, primarily Black, to stand for election as councillors. And one of the things that we were able to do was to get councillors from different parties to help train them. And that's one of the things that I would love to see this organisation, CARE, do over the next few years. Actually encourage young people, encourage Black women into the life of local politics, at least, so that they can not only influence and speak, but actually can make real change happen. Because if we don't do that, then making real change happen, for example, we are just a talking shop, and I have no intention of being a talking shop, and my dealings with the committee tell me none of that committee wants to be simply a talking shop. We're here to make a difference, and that, I think, is a wonderful thing to be able to do. So can I welcome all of you and say, as I always say in meetings like this or otherwise, anything you disagree with me about, please just say. We can discuss it, we can talk it through. I'm perfectly content to have people disagree with me, and we can see if we can find a resolution to our differences. But what's most important for me is working together to make this change possible, to make this change happen, to give our young people in particular a better view of the future that awaits them in Cheltenham, a better opportunity. And that's why I was so pleased, Florence, that you came to the 2 events we had this week, because I think working together, we can change what business does, we can change what organizations do, and we can change how those who will seek to employ people actually look at people from the Black and ethnic minority communities. So thank you for asking me to speak. I wasn't really anticipating having that other than to say hello. But I think this is a real opportunity. I love the work you've done, and I look forward very much to a future where we can make things happen and make change possible and make lives better. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I mean, it's been really wonderful to work with you in the last year. And first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who've given their time to turn up for the event. We've been meeting since we had a conference in November 2020, and we've been meeting every 3 weeks since February last year until now. And I can't thank enough the core group that have put in their time and their effort to meet every 3 weeks until now to get to this moment. If I may ask the core group, could you please wave your hand so that people can sort of see who you are? It's been absolutely amazing to have people who are committed to change, to work with them, and who are willing to listen, and for us to come together today is a moment just to begin the journey that I believe we all dream of. Thank you. To prepare for this conference, I dug out a book I had read a few years ago titled, "Where Do We Go From Here?" Going through it again, I was so surprised what Dr. Martin Luther King spoke today, and how many years ago is that? So for me, it just means there's a lot of work to do, but maybe we know better now, and we've got more support. As such, as much as I feel privileged to host this conference, at the same time, feel very much indebted to those who came before me. For it is because of them and their fight for racial and social justice that I'm in the position to be hosting this conference today. In case you're wondering why, I grew up in Kenya, and for those who might not know where this is, it is within East Africa, a former colony of the British Empire. Growing up in an environment where my identity was only connected to the language I spoke and not the color of my skin. When I went to school, it was always about learning, not worrying about whether I'll be excluded. And grew up in a community that I was nurtured to be the adult that I am today. This was a life so far away from race conversation that any child could ever imagine. Back to the conference. Thank you again for taking time to join us this afternoon. The last 2 years have been a game changer for everyone. The pandemic has changed how we work and exposed the inequalities that many ethnically and culturally diverse communities face daily. The inequalities and disparities of the quality of life for many of our communities has been unbelievable and is shocking for a civilized society like the one we live in. As such, we gather here today, and I want to remind ourselves to a quote: "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success." That's by Henry Ford. I believe it is up to us to ensure that we work together to address the inequalities in our country today so that our children and the future generation can thrive. This is why I care.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we're here.
Oh, hi.
We're here.
We're just, Tom's just going to share a presentation.
I'm going to share my presentation a minute. Just hold on. Okay, here. I'm just sharing my presentation. Yeah, there. Okay. Is that? Share. And back. Hooray! I'm back. So, the journey. How did we get here? In beginning of June 2020, a young woman, Shekana Swamba, came to me and said, we call her, I should say, Auntie Florence, I've got this event online and I need support. Can you help me? The only interesting thing is that 2 years prior to that, she had been a volunteer and helped me launch Lives of Color. So of course I was going to help her because we are about helping our young people. So speaking to CWR, we came together and we co-hosted the Black Lives Matter event that took place in Cheltenham. Cheltenham and communities beyond Cheltenham came, and as far as I'm aware, over 5,000 people joined us at the event. For me, this showed that the community cared. From that, Cheltenham Borough Council passed a motion to make sure and do everything possible so that our young people and our community, any discrimination they face, we could do everything possible to ensure that this work towards combating racism. And from that motion, we held a Real Child campaign, and by bringing the community together, and here I say community because we had about 8 people come together, sharing the issues within the community, and we spent about 12 weeks, which built up to the Cheltenham Change Conference that we held in November 2020. From that, a few organizations came together, including community members, leaders, and community experts, to build up a core group that has worked to get us to this point. And just to go to the quote that Obama said, change will not happen. It is up to us. We are the change that we seek. So we can't expect somebody else or some other time to do it. It's who we to decide whether we want change or not. So the journey. We set up on a journey. We didn't know what this journey will be like. We didn't know how many people will be there. But we believed that the people who came together, who committed, were people who wanted to see change for the future generations, and for our community now. In the journey, one of the issues and one of the things we did, we started discussion. We discussed the issue of inequality. We discussed about equality. We discussed about equity and justice. And for me, this is one of the images that could not have explained better where we are and what we need to do. And hence the name Cheltenham Alliance for Race Equity, because we felt equity reaches and gets you where you are. We are not all equal. We all have different abilities, and we need change that ensures that no matter where we are, it will come to us. Oh, I mean, we can see what equality does. One person has access, the other person doesn't. What does that mean? So we need to focus on equity in everything that we do in all areas of our lives. Another thing that we spent quite a lot of time on was really thinking how to be diplomatic and choose correct terms. Many of you will know that the term BAME have been talked about over and over again, and which is the right terminology. For Cheltenham Alliance and for Race Equity, we decided that ethnically and culturally diverse communities is the right term for us to use in referring to culturally diverse communities, because it recognizes somebody's ethnicity and cultural background, no matter where you are in the world. So if you ever hear of ethnically and culturally diverse communities, that is what we mean. And so what are we up to? What is the organization about? The organization is about to bring together interested parties to transform, and for me that word transform is key, to promote, advance, and celebrate equity and equality in relation to race, ethnicity, and culture. I'm really glad that you are all here today. As I said, transform. Transform doesn't mean to change. And when I looked online, there could not have been a better image for me to think about, apart from that. Because we can be something, but unless the in-between are filled up, because we don't know until you fill all the other gaps to see what something can be. And that's my reference to that image. So in order to do this work, we set out an action plan. Because without a plan, nothing happens. And so we've got 10 points, action plans that we'll be working on. Promoting self-awareness or biases, white privilege and privilege, equal opportunity for all communities, public funding supporting projects infrastructure, police and fire service stop unequal treatment of minorities, review handling, resourcing, responding on hate crime incidents, audit of monuments, public works, street names linked to slavery, decolonize and reclaim the curriculum, lobby the NHS care sector for parity of treatment for minorities, lobby councillors to adopt policies supporting race equity and equality, eliminate structural racism in housing. Is a huge call, but for everyone here, I don't think it's an impossible goal. We are here because we care. We are here because we want to do something about it. And these are just a few of the issues, not all of the issues that were brought up in the Race Commission report led by Rupert Walters that you'll be hearing from later on today. Another point I wanted to make clear is our 10-point action plan will work with you to address issues that affect our communities, and in order to take care to transform and influence policy and deliver on our action plan, we need to work in a way that ensures we are collaborating, and that for me the word is collaborating in the work that we do. This way of work collaboratively will see us pool our resources together. For example, individual expertise in relation to education, housing, healthcare, criminal justice, to create a better and more impactful solution. I believe that in the past, attempts of addressing racial justice has not been as transformative because everyone is trying to find a solution in silos. So by working together, we'll help identify where issues are interdependent to help process, analyze, and disseminate information and allow us to combat racial injustices more intelligently. And for this, as I'm talking about strategic intelligence. World Economic Forum defined this as a dynamic system of contextual intelligence that enables users to trace relationships and interdependency between issues, supporting more informed decision-making. And I'm confident that all the organizations that have joined us today, by working together, we will be able to do that for Cheltenham and for our county. Another area that I believe is really important is looking at data. What is data telling us? Despite the difficulties of the last 2 years, we have been gifted with more awareness of digital resources and tools. One area I believe care needs to focus on is utilizing and analyzing the data that we have available. Utilizing datasets will help us focus on where to leverage resources instead of focusing on piloting projects, where sometimes there's no need, but there's a pilot. Care will be able to foresee things so that we can take action and use the information to implement relevant change. There's no need of taking action for something that should have been, 5 years ago. We are living in times that things are changing so quickly. For example, we all know that Gloucestershire schools in the whole country, if you are an African or African heritage child, you are more likely to be excluded from school. And that is 5.6 more likely. So if we know that already, why do a pilot? Why do research? Why can't we just go straight in and tackle the problem? I know we've got teachers logged on today and they're listening. Let's work together and do something about this. From this data, we can identify resources available to address these specific issues. In a constantly changing world, we need to ensure that the change we are implementing is relevant for the time. And that's the most important thing, relevant for the time. There's no need of making change for something that should have been done 10 years ago, or pulling out a research paper that is not relevant today. Media. Media is a very important aspect of our lives. But one of the things that sometimes we forget is how we can use media to inform the work that we do, the research papers that say the good work that's been shared. As CARE, we have social media. We'll have social media as a tool. So we are looking to share and be really active about the progress that any organizations that is a member of SHARE is doing. It doesn't matter how big or small that progress is, it is something we want to share and celebrate it. We know media have always had power to change the narrative. They influence what we do, what we wear, the books we read. So we look to share the good news of what we're doing. By sharing the small, medium, big progress that we're making within our organizations and our communities, and our county, we believe that we will encourage many and start changing the narrative for our communities. Social media, there we are. One thing we cannot forget is be open to learning. Learning in any different way, whether it's a new book, whether it's a new program, we have to keep learning in order that we engage with the information. Because if we don't learn, we don't move, we don't get anywhere. But while we learn, the core and the meat of it, we need not to forget our communities, the ethnically and culturally diverse communities. When implementing any changes, they have the information, they are the experts of the community. And the reality is, and Liana will tell you, I will tell you more about the methodology, is that when the community is driving the change, then the change that is needed is the change that will be implemented. So I'll pass you over to Liana. But before I pass you over to Liana, I thought this is such a really good quote from Mandela. So just let's reflect on that. I won't read it, I just let us reflect on that. Thank you, Liana. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Hello, everybody. I'm Liana Williams, co-chair of CARE, and I am currently studying my master's at the University of Gloucestershire, and my area and discipline area is psychology, and I am practicing to be a community psychologist. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to be a part of CARE, because I wanted to be part of something that I could bring my own individual experience to and give back to the communities and something within society, injustices that I face myself, and work with others to basically support them. So before I go into it, I'll probably just share a little bit about myself, which basically frames why I'm so passionate about working with communities, giving people voice, and more so our younger generation. And I don't know about you, but just seeing all the kids at Pittville School waving like that, for me, really hyped me up. I felt so excited. You know, that's the reason that we do this. It's not for us old adults sitting here. We do this for our future generations coming up. So I am originally from Birmingham. You can probably hear my accent, but I grew up. Oh dear, I can see Steve laughing there. But I grew up in a all-white family, and I experienced racism. You know, I'm an 80s child, so racism was very overt back in those days. And I didn't just experience racism in school. I experienced racism outside of school, but also within my own family and within my own home. I grew up thinking that I was never an academic, that I'm not going to get very far, and you know, life is just a bit of a struggle. But you know, I can speak. I've got the gift of the gab, and I love meeting people. So you know, that's how I basically got through my career, meeting people. So anyway, after my son, I decided that I was going to go to university to study psychology, which is like my passion. And it turns out I am an academic after all. And again, through this journey, it made me realise, well, hang on a minute, this already is an injustice. You know, I have gotten into my 30s thinking, no, I could never be an academic. I couldn't go to university. And then suddenly realising by being at university, when you're opened up to all this new knowledge, that actually, in fact, you really realise the amount of social injustice that is out there. So I personally like to take my own experience and I use it as a way to give back and help other people. You flip the thing. Okay, so that basically will hopefully sets the premise of the community participation action research, which frames and underpins the way that we work. And in practice, this is what we've essentially done in the formation of care. And I think it's a really exciting approach because actually it means that everybody's involved and everybody who is taking part is going to be learning something new. We're actioning straight away. So that means that we don't have to sit and wait for the next person to come along, or as Florence said, for the policies to come into place. And I think one of the main and most informative and valuable ways that we learn is by engaging with each other. And when I met Florence, I noticed straight away that we had something in common. And personally for me, when it comes to social injustice, and my obviously personal experience is racism, so that's something that's being like anti-racist and sort of educating people on that is something that I'm obviously passionate about. But I actually speak about it with excitement because I think when we are addressing social injustice, we should do it with enthusiasm and we should be excited about it, because we go through school and our educational journey learning about things and being prepared for the world and trying to be engaged citizens. And then actually when we get out into the world, we suddenly realise it may not be what we thought. And I think it's a responsibility for us adults to, listen to the future generation, listen to our kids of today, and be enthusiastic when we're trying to help them engage with the world, engage with different cultures, ethnicities, religions, etc., because that's the way that we prepare them most. So what better way of doing that than getting involved with care and providing it through the framework that we're using. So what it is. So basically, community participatory action research is a philosophy of engagement that encourages autonomy. It's emancipatory as individuals and groups are directly involved, which in turn increases people's sense of citizenship and positively influences health and well-being of not just the individual, but the community that they are around. That's like friends and family, but also like the wider society on the whole. We don't claim and we don't want to work in a prescriptive way. So we're not working for people, we're working with people in partnership. That's individuals, groups and organisations within the community. So this makes it a cyclical process. And a lot of the time, as Florence mentioned previously, we will go to a community, we'll engage with them and say, okay, well, this research says this, and this is what we're going to do. But actually, we don't often get the feedback from the community and those who are actually living the experience. And at the end of the day, when you are going through a social injustice and when there's something happening in your life which is a burden to you every single day, you want change to happen right now. And so by working with people, we're also engaging and we're listening and we're learning, and actually through that learning and that process of engagement, we're helping people basically work on their own well-being and actually helping them by facilitating them to action the things that is most important to them at that moment in time. So it means as we go along, we've got evidence and we're always willing to change it as we do. So there's not a direct and linear approach to this. But more importantly, it normalizes engagement and it provides that opportunity and encourages intercultural curiosity, which is the foundation of what we like to promote within care. So when we are engaging with the community, we understand that each project and each person or group is going to be unique, and the context that they're coming from and position that they're coming from is also unique. So we're all going to have to adjust to that, and what might be urgent to one person or one group of people might not feel as urgent to another. But you know, this is how we learn, and this is how we support each other. And so by working with each other and producing that practical knowledge, we can take action and make that knowledge available, which in turn makes it a transformative process. And again, that's another positive. So fundamentally, our commitment to working with our ethnically and culturally diverse communities as co-creators will eventually help empower these communities and individuals, which I think as a whole society needs anyway, you know. So I think we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So the principles and goals of this approach to working with communities and engagement is first that commitment to the participation of everyday people just like us, and in every aspect of everything that we're doing, we're asking people to be involved as essentially co-researchers of our own issues that are important to us and to others. And so that means that actually, if it isn't a personal issue to us, we can be allies, because you know we're all coming from a different position, and we all have the capability and ability and should really want to help our neighbour, basically. So the attention to the needs of disadvantaged or marginalised people or groups is really important, and by promoting social justice for the people and groups, this helps build this respect for knowledge, and it's a mutual learning for all of those involved. And I keep repeating that because the point is, this new knowledge for all, it helps change attitudes, and if we can help change attitudes, we can help change behaviours, and if we can help change those behaviours, it would provide a way of us, it shapes how we engage with the world, basically. And of course, when it comes to our younger generations, we want that to be positive, but we also want that to be positive for ourselves. So go on to how we engage. Okay, so just to give like a brief example of how this might look in practice, as we did with this, to be honest with you, when we were evolving care, the objective is to basically work together and design like a toolkit in a reflexive and cyclical way, which helps facilitate the whole of community engagement. So the first stage would be to inform. So we must, as those involved, must identify the existing issues and the opportunities and solutions to work together, and to dig out the initial concerns and priorities, and to discuss the level of engagement that each person can bring. And then we'll consult, and at this stage what this means is it's obtaining responses and feedback to the information that was initially provided, and consider the ways that the community engagement can be achieved, and what kinds of communication is required, and what levels of community support is required. E.g., for example, if we're going to a meeting and we might need a translator, you know, we need to work together and bring a translator in, simply. So then we'll move on to the collaborative stage, which is, I think, the most fun stage and most important stage. And this is where we actually build trust within our communities. And I think there's enough research out there, and we only have to look at COVID to say that there is a lack of trust within certain communities, and which means the commitment to those members who are a part of care are required to work directly with these people, and through a process to ensure that the involvement in decision making and planning and actioning is also contributed from the communities. So again, we're not prescribing and we're not going to do something for someone, we're working together, and essentially giving voice to people that probably haven't had it before. And fundamentally, coming from what underpins it is to empower people, which underpins our approach to care, and I personally think it sets us aside from others doing this work, because we have done this from the start. I would class myself as a community member. I got involved. I then got other community members involved. For example, the University of Gloucestershire, we have students, and hopefully they're on the call today, who created our website for us, and I felt like that was like such a wonderful opportunity for them, and hopefully they've learned something from it and they will take it forward with what they do in their work. So for me, this sort of like decision making, it wasn't me going to them with the website as an example, say, you know, this is what Care want. It's like, well, what do you think? And it was their involvement that made it happen, and we consistently and continue to engage with each other as partners. So also another benefit of working in this way means that as we go along and we're collecting new knowledge and or data and we're supporting each other, we will also have like the indicators of what needs to be addressed more and how we can monitor that excess. So we will always have the research as a work in progress in everything that we do. So that doesn't mean that if, for example, an organisation wanted to see something solid, the way that we work, we have it from the start, and rather than having to then go back and do the research in hand. So I would just leave you with the next quote. And you can just have a read of that. And I really like this one. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We are all complicit when we tolerate injustice." He said, "It's not enough to say it will get better by and by." He said, "Each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and speak out." And that was forwarded by John Lewis. And I think when we listen to our younger generations today, they are ready for it. And I think, you know, as adults, we owe it to them to give them what they're asking for, because, you know, this is their future that we're working towards. Okay, thank you for listening and thank you for coming.
It's over to me next, isn't it, Liana?
Yeah, hello. Yeah. You stop sharing. Yeah. Over to Rupert. Rupert,
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'm Rupert Walters, based in Gloucester. So I chaired the Race Review Commission in Gloucester, and I'm also from Birmingham as well. So, but Liana and I know that because we've met before. So let me just share my screen and we'll just go through the report that we used. So, Gloucestershire Commission to review race and relations. So, in response to the killing of George Floyd in the spring of 2020, Gloucester passed a motion, it was a cross-party motion, that they wanted to better understand what race relations were in the city. Now, we chose Gloucester because, of course, within the county, it has the highest percentage of racially minoritized communities. So it's 11% in Gloucester and 4% county-wide. Sorry, this isn't moving on to the next one. So we set the Commission to review the race relations in Gloucester with a view to producing recommendations to improve the lives of minoritized communities in the city. And the Commission was represented by partner organisations, including the police, County Council, NHS, as well as the University of Gloucester and community representatives. So we thought it was really important to get the community to be part of that commission, and we actually put a call out quite early on in that process. Now, the commission lasted for 12 months, and we put a call out, and we had lots and lots of community engagement that wanted to be part of that. So in the end, we got to about 20, so it was 20 representatives on that commission, and as I said, that lasted for a year. And what we did was, so we did an awful lot of data exercise at the front to establish what we were going to look at. And it's no surprise, you know, the things that the data drives out where there are huge inequalities on those ones. Criminal justice, education, health, mental and physical, workforce. And we also did a piece around monuments and statues, which was done by the County Council. And so as I said, 20 commissioners, and we had a really collaborative approach on that. And we've delivered over 40 recommendations across all of those organisations. Now, that's the report, and I'll put it in the chat after this. So the report is completed, and it was completed at the end of last year and became public in the public remit at December 31, 2021. And I'll put this in the chat so you can access that. One of the things that we did do, and it just goes back to the point that Liana was just talking about, was actually having that data was really good, but actually we needed some core for evidence to match those two things together. So it wasn't just numbers we were looking at. We wanted to have a look at the lived experience, and we wanted to enrich the data that we had so as we could come to a really informed position. Well, that was quite difficult. You know, we started a call for evidence in April, and that lasted until September. And we thought initially that people would want to talk about their experiences, and we thought that, you know, we would have a real flurry of responses. And we made it quite easy. You know, you could either do that by leaving a message, email, Facebook, video recording. So we wanted to make it really easy for people to talk about their lived experience and place that on the website. And it wasn't really that easy, you know. So, you know, in the first bit, and we weren't really getting any feedback on that, and we were a little bit concerned on that. But actually, what we decided to do was take that as a lesson in itself, but actually engaging with communities on subjects that cause trauma, that sometimes are very uncomfortable to talk about. You have to approach it in a different way. And the methodology that we probably used in the past by just asking people to come to us isn't one that was working. Building that trust is really important. If we were to do this exercise again, we would come from a very different place. What we did end up doing actually is that we did have some focus groups towards the end. And here we can see some of the responses that came out of that. And I'll just read a few. A doctor suggested that alopecia was not a problem for a 13-year-old, as she should be wearing a headscarf. Banter of racist remarks from white students never taken seriously. Black history was a difficult subject for teachers who struggled with sharing facts about slavery, often led to racist comments from white students. There's some really powerful examples in there, and that really came out of our focus groups. And as I said, you know, if we'd have probably approached that call for evidence in a different way, we'd have had lots and lots of more responses. And you know, some of the informal conversations that we had, that, you know, we were saying that, okay, so whilst, you know, the out and out racism may not exist, you know, we don't have the National Front marching down the streets, and we don't have speeches anymore, like, you know, the River of Blood from Enoch Powell, but the microaggressions have not gone away. In fact, they have just really increased in the workplace, you know, in our schools and in society. And on a day-to-day, that is extremely challenging, and, you know, and it wears people down. So the conclusion that we came to, that race inequalities exist in all sectors, you know, and the Commission saw that everywhere we looked, we know that race inequalities exist everywhere. Everything we looked at, race, it touches everything. It's in our society, therefore we see it in all areas that we looked at. Many people from racially minoritized groups in Gloucester and Gloucestershire experience racism, hatred, and microaggressions every day. Gloucestershire needs to better showcase and celebrate the incredible diversity of talent, skills, experiences, and passions of racially minoritized people. And yeah, and that's really true. 4% countrywide, it is a significant number. And there's an awful lot of creative talent, passion, and people that want to be involved and add to their communities within that. And actually, they should have the opportunity to do that. So then we have some Gloucestershire-wide calls to action. Now, whilst the Commission focused on Gloucester specifically, actually, when we look at the organisation like criminal justice and education and health, they are organisations that cover the county, not just Gloucestershire. But actually, it was really good to kind of focus on Gloucestershire actually because we have a high population. Effectively, we got a more richness of data coming out of that. So, establish an independent and permanently funded, high-profile legacy organisation that has a voice for marginalised people in Gloucestershire. Sorry, it's my set up a Gloucestershire-wide vision for workforce equality in public sector and collaborate to create better and more workforce initiatives, including a leadership development program. And that's really true. So when we looked at the workforce deep dive, actually minoritized communities are doing quite well in those lower paid jobs. But then when we start to move up into that leadership role, there is a marked absence of leaders in any significant positions county-wide. Commit to putting in place measures and driving the required changes in culture and mindsets to ensure the collection and the use of comprehensive and high-quality ethnicity data, planning and delivering public sector services, including Commission services. Once again, we spoke about data and we speak about data all the time. One of the other challenges around data is actually collecting it. So, we found out that many people are uncomfortable asking certain questions around race and equality, and we have to make it easy to collect that data, and then we have to make it easily available because it's really important in how we shape the future going forward. And acknowledge the existence of racism, prejudice and microaggressions in Gloucester and Gloucestershire, and commit to stepping up the individual organisations' leadership to tackle these with confidence and clarity. Racism is a difficult conversation. We found it, when we're looking at some of the deep dives and some of the questions that we're asking, it is difficult for some people to talk about racism. And we have to, for us to move forward, we just have to acknowledge that it exists, and we have to work together to tackle those indifferences and prejudices. So those are the 4 wide calls to actions that we have and came out of that report. I'll stop sharing. So as I say, that report's available on. Actually, I'll put the link in the chat. And so, what we hope to drive out of that is the legacy piece. So, what comes next? What we don't want it to do, certainly, is just to be a report that sits on a shelf or in the top drawer of a desk or has no teeth. What I will say is, and I'm really comforted by, is the fact that actually, so it goes through a cycle now. So we've been through the cycle, through Cabinet, through committee, through the senior management team within Gloucester, through Leadership Gloucester. It was extremely well received and very well supported. ONS, overseeing scrutiny for the council, are looking for us to come back in 12 months' time and talk about what are the changes that this report has brought and what comes next. And so they're really invested to understand what's going to change and want to see how that's going to happen. And that's it from me.
Thanks a lot, Rupert. That was really insightful for those who hadn't read the report. I think it really supports why we're here and why this conference as well is really important to see what tools we have within us, and so that we can work together to address some of those issues that has been highlighted by Rupert. I don't know whether anybody had any specific questions for Rupert specifically. Anybody in the chat? No? No? Okay. Oh, go on, Flo, go on. Hello, Flo. She gone. She gone, or is she asking a question? I didn't get that. Okay, she's
Judith,
gone. Hello.
Can I just ask, Rupert, whether you looked at any mechanisms that have
Okay.
been used in relation to encouraging a Black community actually to stand for election, be elected, and then influence the way things are that way?
No, we didn't. So, and that would have been another deep dive. And there was so much. There was so much things we could have looked at, and actually, given time, there's so much things that we'd like to look at. But, it's just, but from that data trawl, the things that we looked at were the things that were really evident, and that came out, and that we wanted to report on to help us move forward. So no, we didn't, but it'd be an absolute worthwhile exercise to move forward on that flow.
Steve. There's Steve. I can't see. Yeah. Steve?
Yeah,
Steve, yeah.
thank you.
Go on. There you are.
Rupert, hi. This is Councillor Steve Harvey. I'm the Mayor of Cheltenham. And a bit like Colette Finnegan in Gloucester, I'm a civic mayor, so I've got no political power. I'll leave that to the likes of Flo. But one thing that struck me last year when I met Liana and Florence was this equity versus equality. Now, you've used one of the stats for the ECDC in the county, running at probably 4%, Gloucester with a figure of 11%. The census should be coming out very shortly to local authorities. I think that will be an incredible tool to update our data on where the various communities are within the county. But what I'd like to ask, and maybe this is for Flo / Richard Gibson, I am a fan of statistics, but I think we need to look at outside of Gloucester to see where there are pockets of problems, and not look at the statistics from Gloucester and try and extrapolate that across the county, because that way we get an equity of resources, and where the problems are, and there are problems, I know there are, they can be dealt with, rather than try and do a sort of a shotgun approach. This is what we learned in Gloucester. It's not a criticism, it's just an observation. This is what we learned in Gloucester, so we'll take this across the whole of the county. But thank you for the report. I found it absolutely, well, sad in some respects. I'm sure you're not surprised to learn that because of the reaction from some people. And we're in 2022. We should be beyond all of this, shouldn't we? And I know it's a lifelong fight. But well done. Thank you very much for presenting to us. I really enjoyed your brief. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just say, it's just a comment to add on to sort of respond to what Councillor Steve Harvey just said, Mayor. The stats you're talking about, one of the things that is hardly spoken about is the difference of the urban racism and rural racism. So it is really key that anything we do, we identify the difference other than chunking it in one, because by chunking it, that is the same problem. Actually, we are not really dealing with the issues of systemic and structural racism that exist in our society. And that can sometimes take away from where they need support most. So I think for me, I've been talking about this for over 2 years now, that there has to be a difference between to be looking at urban racism and rural racism.
Lawrence, you're spot on as usual. Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So I think, well, no, I don't think actually. I know. So the vaccine program through the NHS, so what they've learned is actually this isn't just one homogenized group of people who share exactly the same problem and so forth. So, there's been some great learning there, hopefully that they'll take forward and share with lots of other organizations about actually everybody experiences different things. That's race, where they live, You know, so you know, it's not just everybody just doesn't face the same problem. So I've sat on a few calls with the NHS, and they're identifying that, Florence. And I hope this is part of that identification that says actually the rural challenges are different from those, you know, that people experience probably in the centre.
So I think personally, I think it's something that we have an opportunity here as Cheltenham Alliance for Race Equity to really focus our, you know, on what we do within that arena, being that we live in a county that is more rural than urban, and how we move that conversation forward with our counterparts. Okay, I think we're just coming to break. Okay, for those who are watching this event on YouTube, the stream will end while the meeting goes into a break. But if you leave your link open again, you come back. This is a 3:20. 3:55. Sorry. 3:35. Sorry. Yeah. We'll come back online. For those in the meeting, we will have a few 5 minutes break. Please don't leave the meeting, but feel free to turn off your video and sound. See you soon. Don't go away. Come back. There's more to go.
Florence?
Yeah.
Florence, can you hear me? It's Colin.
Yes, I can.
Hi, we're expecting to present at 3:15, is that right? From school.
Can we swap?
Okay. Can you stop? Okay.
To 26.